As they entered the store, he immediately recognized the blue and grey decor of the local Walmart. Marjorie placed Jamie in the shopping cart seat and proceeded to push him through the store. Because the seat pointed towards the driver of the cart, Jamie could only see behind Marjorie instead of what was in front of him, and what Marjorie was looking at. However, Marjorie paid special attention to making sure Jamie knew what she was purchasing, allowing him to be part of the buying decisions. Marjorie wasn't a cruel person. She understood that Jamie was not a real child and tried to be a little more inclusive. As they walked the aisles, Marjorie would quietly ask which item he liked, and the baby Jamie would point or squeal his approval. He actually got excited through the whole process and eagerly helped choose everything from toys to a stroller. Jamie would not be given many decisions these days, so when Marjorie allowed him to pick out the various items, Jamie became very interested. He even tried to convince Marjorie to buy a new crib, but she refused, citing financial limitations. During the adventure, Jamie only squirmed a few times. The first when Marjorie stopped to investigate playpens. Jamie was going to protest. However, Marjorie suggested they would have one around the house for appearances, and he nervously agreed. The second problem arose when Marjorie picked up a set of baby bottles, using his best baby voice. "No, Baba. Me cup." Marjorie smiled maternally at her new son and the effective use of his new vocabulary. "No, honey. You made a big mess on your shirt when I gave you a glass of water. You are going to use sippy cups and nursing bottles. It is what all babies your age use." Jamie frowned at the comment. His frustration was as much to do with her saying no as the reality of how his life was changing. "Well, I'm not going to drink toddler formula. This is all starting to get a little overboard." "Well, honey, we shall see what happens." Her remark was directed at Jamie, however she wasn't about to change her mind on the subject. In fact, it was a little humorous since she had already put a dozen cans in the shopping cart. Jamie also knew she wasn't really paying attention to the conversation. Instead, it seemed she was paying lip service, which only frustrated Jamie even more. Halfway through their shopping trip, Jamie's bladder started to exert pressure. "Me potty." Understanding the necessity of time, she quickly turned the cart towards the bathroom. However, halfway there, Jamie's expression turned to relief, then shock as his bladder released itself. Jamie squirmed in his as the diaper grew warmer, embarrassed by his lack of control. He knew that his incontinence was getting worse, as he found it harder and harder to hold it in. His little bladder must be getting smaller, and with it the ability to control the flow. For the most part, he'd been able to make it to the bathroom. Lately, there had been a lot of close calls, but he had always been near a bathroom. But this journey to the bathroom was far too long. Marjorie, seeing the expression on his face, stopped the cart and patted his head, trying to console the little child. "It's okay, honey. You can't be expected to control yourself. Just relax. Finish up what you are doing and I'll change you in a couple of minutes." All Jamie could do was sit in the cart as tears silently rolled down his face. He whimpered and fussed as Marjorie walked the aisles towards the bathroom. As promised, they pulled up in front of the washroom and Marjorie reached behind the dirty toddler, opening the package of Pampers and other changing supplies. Finally, Jamie was removed from the cart and carried into the women's bathroom, his head hung low. Marjorie carried him in, shutting the door behind her. As Jamie was placed on the changing table, his head shot around, looking from one side to another, happy to note there were no other women in the washroom. He tried to relax, however the cold, hard plastic changing station was not easy to get used to. Jamie put his hands over his eyes in discomfort and embarrassment, wishing he was 1,000 miles away. Without thinking, one of his tiny hands quietly moved south, depositing its thumb in his mouth.